I've been sitting on this bench for 38 years. I've seen thousands of cases, every excuse imaginable. Millionaires trying to buy their way out of tickets. Politicians' kids thinking their last names grant immunity. People who steal out of greed, anger, pure selfishness. But what happened on that cold November morning in my Providence courtroom still breaks my heart and restores my faith in humanity. The courtroom was packed, families clutching paperwork, young lawyers nervously shuffling files. My bailiff whispered something about the final case being unusual. I looked at the docket. Simple shoplifting charge. Bread. $2.89 from Tony's Market. Routine. Or so I thought. Then those heavy courtroom doors opened, and everything changed. 84 years old, my age, born 1936. We came into this world during the Great Depression, witnessed the same history, but our lives couldn't have been more different. He was pulling a beat-up shopping cart, wheels squeaking, covered with a faded green tarp. Army jacket over 2 sweaters, patched pants, boots held together with duct tape, everything he owned in that cart. But despite the obvious poverty, he carried himself with dignity, removed his worn baseball cap respectfully, stood as straight as his aged body allowed, looked me directly in the eyes without shame, just quiet dignity. There was something about him, something that told me this wasn't just another case. My clerk called his name, Robert Anthony Martinez. Bobby. He stepped forward, gripping his walking stick, keeping his other hand protectively on that shopping cart, like he was guarding the most precious thing in the world. Shoplifting. 1 loaf of bread. $2.89. I've seen people steal electronics worth thousands, designer clothes they'd never wear, but bread, a single loaf of bread, that told me everything about real desperation. I asked him how he pleaded. His voice carried the weight of someone who'd lived through hell. Guilty, he said. Simple as that. No excuses, just guilty. He took the bread because he was hungry and had no money. The brutal honesty of survival. The courtroom went completely silent, everyone watching this elderly man with his shopping cart. Some faces showed pity, others curiosity. A few showed recognition like they'd been there themselves. I needed to understand. Why couldn't he pay? He'd been homeless for 6 years, living on the streets of Providence, sleeping in doorways, under bridges, trying to find work, but at his age, businesses looked right through him, invisible. Same age as me, 2 men born the same year, one sitting on the bench of justice, wearing robes of authority, the other standing before it, homeless and hungry. The randomness of fate, I had to ask. Did he serve our country? The transformation was immediate and profound. Bobby straightened up with military bearing that decades of hardship couldn't erase. His shoulders went back, his chin lifted, his eyes focused with the intensity of a Marine who'd seen combat. Yes, United States Marine Corps. Vietnam, 1968 to 1970. 3 tours of duty, 3 tours. Most men did 1 tour and came home broken, haunted, changed forever. This man went back twice more, volunteered to return to hell because his brothers were still there. Throughout this exchange, I noticed his grip on that shopping cart never loosened, not once. His knuckles were white from the pressure. He was guarding something more valuable than gold. I stood up from my bench and walked around to the front. This wasn't about the law anymore. This was about understanding a human being, about seeing the person society had rendered invisible. Bobby served 3 tours in Vietnam, 20 years old when he shipped out to Da Nang. Thought he'd do 1 tour and come home, but they kept extending him. Before he knew it, 3 years had passed, 3 years of watching friends die. I couldn't stop looking at that cart, the way he protected it. So I asked him directly, "What's in the cart, Bobby?" His entire demeanor changed in an instant. His grip tightened. For the first time, he looked genuinely worried, vulnerable. "Personal items," he said quietly. "Nothing illegal, just things that meant everything to him." My intuition told me there was something extraordinary here. I asked him gently if he'd feel comfortable showing me. I wasn't asking as Judge Caprio. I was asking as Frank, as someone who wanted to understand. Bobby looked around at the 50-plus people watching. His hands trembled. "People might think he'd lost his mind," he finally said. "Think the war broke something in his brain." I've been on this bench for 30 years, I told him. I've never thought someone was broken for caring deeply about something. Please, Bobby, show us what matters to you. Bobby took a deep breath that seemed to come from the very depths of his soul. Slowly, with shaking hands, he pulled back that green tarp. What the entire courtroom saw next stopped everyone cold. The cart was filled with hundreds of photographs, letters, military documents, dog tags, Purple Heart medals, Bronze Star ribbons, a carefully maintained journal wrapped in plastic. As Bobby lifted out the photographs, I felt my breath catch. Young faces, most barely out of their teens, that mixture of bravery and uncertainty that defines Marines heading into combat. Bobby's voice cracked. Every Marine from his 3 units who didn't make it home from Vietnam, he'd been carrying their pictures, their letters, their stories for over 50 years. The courtroom fell into absolute silence, sacred silence. Bobby lifted out photograph after photograph. Lance Corporal Danny Reeves from Oklahoma, 19 when he died in the Tet Offensive. Corporal Miguel Santos from New Mexico, died saving 4 wounded Marines. Private First Class Kevin O'Brien from Boston, 18 years old, threw himself on a grenade to save their squad. As Bobby shared each story, people throughout my courtroom began to cry, real sobbing. These weren't just old photos, they were a mobile memorial maintained by a man who refused to let his brothers be forgotten, even at the cost of his own well-being. Bobby explained that people see him as just a crazy old homeless veteran with junk. But these boys deserve to be remembered. Their families deserve to know someone still honors their sacrifice. My eyes filled with tears as the scope of his 50-year commitment became clear. How many Marine stories? 382. Every name, every face, every story. Their final letters home, medals that never made it to families, personal effects lost in the chaos of war. He'd been their guardian for half a century. Bobby reached into the cart and pulled out a thick, worn notebook, edges frayed from decades, wrapped in plastic. This is their book. Every story, every detail about their lives, dreams, deaths, families. He'd been writing in it for 53 years. I took that notebook like a religious artifact, began reading. This was extraordinary. The most comprehensive memorial to forgotten heroes I'd ever seen. A masterpiece of remembrance. But what I read next stopped me completely. Bobby had been tracking down families of fallen Marines and returning their personal effects. 216 families found over the years. Sometimes it took decades. He'd hitchhike, walk, take buses when he had money, give them their son's last letter, his medal, a picture he carried, tell them how brave their boy was, how he died with honor. I was looking at a man who had spent 53 years serving others, honoring the dead, comforting the living, all while living in poverty himself. He'd been homeless for 6 years, lost his apartment when his VA disability payments got messed up. But he kept the cart with him always. These boys needed someone to watch over them, to make sure they were never forgotten. I removed my judicial robe, walked over to Bobby, did something unprecedented in my 38 years. I knelt down in front of that shopping cart and began examining each photograph, reading each story, treating Bobby's memorial with the reverence it deserved. Then I stood and addressed my courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, you are witnessing something extraordinary. This man has dedicated his entire adult life to honoring fallen heroes forgotten by everyone except him. Not only was I dismissing the shoplifting charge, but I was appointing Robert Martinez as honorary guardian of military remembrance for this court and community. His service was the most noble thing I'd ever witnessed. The courtroom erupted in applause. But I wasn't finished. Effective immediately, Bobby would have proper housing and support to continue his sacred mission. Rhode Island would provide him with a permanent residence and whatever resources he needed. I picked up my phone and made a call right there in court, called the commanding general of our Marine Corps Reserve. Within 40 minutes, representatives from the National Guard, Veterans Affairs, the Mayor's Office, and the Commanding General were all meeting Bobby, learning about his 5-decade mission. I told Bobby something everyone needed to hear. You're not homeless anymore. You're not forgotten. You're not alone. And neither are your 382 Marine brothers. Today we honor all of you. What happened next created a worldwide movement. Within hours, millions of views. Major networks picked it up. The Veterans Affairs Office established the Robert Martinez Memorial Guard Fund. Over $8 million donated in the first month. Over 300 family members contacted authorities desperate to meet the man who kept their loved ones' memories alive. Bobby was provided with a beautiful house for his memorial collection. The Smithsonian requested his notebook for permanent display. The president invited him to the White House and declared him a living national treasure. This became my final case before retirement. Bobby's case represented everything I've always believed: that every person deserves dignity, that service to others is the highest calling, that compassion has the power to change the world. At my retirement ceremony, Bobby sat at the head table. He'd added a photograph to his collection. Me, kneeling before his memorial cart. Judge Caprio saved my life and honored my boys, he said. Now he's part of the memorial too. Justice isn't just about following the law. It's about seeing the person behind the case and responding with your heart. Bobby Martinez taught me that love, honor, and remembrance can survive any hardship, that heroes walk among us every day, often invisible until someone takes the time to truly see them. Bobby didn't steal bread that day. He gave us all something far more valuable. He reminded us what it means to be faithful, to never forget, to serve without recognition, to love without condition, semper fidelis, always faithful. That's the Marine Corps motto. That's exactly what Bobby Martinez has been for 53 years. That's justice, that's honor, that's humanity. And that's why I'll never forget the day an 84-year-old homeless veteran walked into my courtroom and changed everything.